Okay, good morning, afternoon, or evening because you could be watching this at any time. I am Jessica, and I'm very excited today because finally this is the initial inaugural, episode one, however you want to call it, for our Girl Development podcast. So, um, there's a few things I want to cover today just to set some expectations around what kind of topics I have kind of laid out for the show that we'll be running. But overall, I'm excited to be bringing this to everyone via the live episode recordings as well as future publishings and recordings and VODs and things of that nature as well. So, however you want to keep up with this content, you will be able to, whether it's in real time or, after the fact, of course. So, again, I'm Jessica. I am a board member with Girl Develop It, as well as serving as a subject matter expert for our Python track. And I have many years with the organization, more than I care to think about now. Um, Although it's been a great time with the organization. And so, again, with this show that I've been working on, I really just wanted to take the time to have more of an opportunity to talk to those that are in our community, different folks that might be interested in getting into tech or even transitioning into tech currently through our different classes and things to really support. A lot more of what that journey can look like for you and kind of demystify some things. We get a lot of common questions, especially when folks are first starting out. So I think this will be a great way just to kind of answer a lot of like how do you get started, what languages do you choose, what are the different career paths, and here are some experiences from different folks in our community that have been able to transition, whether it be through Girl Develop It or, some other methods. So, with that being said, again, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have everyone. Listening in or tuning in, however you are. And in this episode today, again, the title for this episode is really getting started in tech. And while that can be a huge topic, I'm thinking more from the overview perspective. Okay. So, of course, there's a lot of deep dives that we can do. But today, I want to be able to just kind of give an overview of what are those different career fields like, um, maybe how you could choose which route you want to go, and also how you could do that with us through Girl Develop It as well. So, yeah, again, if you are not familiar with Girl Develop It, you're new to our community, welcome. So happy to have you. Our organization has been around for many years now, and we have always been centered around, helping women and non binary adults just feel comfortable to get into software. And so, our mission is to create welcoming, supportive opportunities for women and non binary individuals to help learn software development skills. We believe in a world where all people are included and empowered in developing the future of technology. So, through our classes, our projects, our events, all of our students are able to develop code, confidence, and community. And for me, of course, the coding is important and even the confidence is so important. But I think the community matters to me the most more than anything else. So, with that being said, again, I'll give a brief, I guess, a little bit of history for how I got started with Girl Develop It. So, back in, I think it was about 2014, probably, I was learning about tech outside of the traditional university setting. I started to work for a coding boot camp, and that was still a new thing, I guess, 10 ish years ago. And I had experience in learning to code through the university, but I did not have a very good experience with that. And so I really felt like, it was not that enjoyable for me overall. And so it was actually going to a workshop while I was working at the coding boot camp that was actually hosted by a former chapter member, a former chapter leader, and a former actually chapter founder. And so, I was sitting there, I was learning kind of what they were doing. It was like PHP or maybe Ruby or something like that, the programming language. And I just remember it was like, oh, it's just clicking. Like it just kind of made sense to me this time, even though the first time I did, took an entire semester to learn. I didn't feel like I knew anything. I felt really like out of my depth. I felt like, I would never do this again. I don't know that I got anything out of this. And so fast forward, when I had that experience, I was able to see the education process from a different perspective and in a different type of environment, a lot more comfortable, a lot lower stress level, lower stakes. And I remember going up to the woman that was teaching after the class, and I said, I tried to learn this before and I did not know I did not know what was going on. And all of a sudden it just like kind of made sense to me. But like before I really like it was so hard. I didn't understand it. And she was just like, everybody feels like that. And I don't know why it just hit differently for me when she said it that time versus when my instructor was trying to tell us that everybody was doing good, we're good, we're good. We were all trying to drop out of the class because we're like, I don't understand what's going on. So, something different about just having that one on one conversation and someone just kind of identifying and saying, yeah, we all feel that way. That made a big difference for me. And also being in that environment made a big difference for me. And from then on, I just like went head first into the coding world and into tech. And I started out with Girl Develop It by being a TA. So we still have the same opportunities to this day, but being a TA was an opportunity for me to volunteer. And it was also an opportunity for me to, solidify the skills that I was learning. And then one of the benefits to being a TA was that I could take some classes for free as well. So that was important to me. I was trying to learn Java at the time that I started to TA, but I had experience as a front end development with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript by that point. So it was really awesome. It was really empowering to help other women that were in the classes learn about how to use those new technologies that they didn't have experience with. And for me it was like I kept saying like, I don't know enough, I don't know enough, I don't know enough. But I was supported by the chapter leaders, and it was the it was like just kind of watching other people have their aha moment. That has continued to spur me on as an instructor over time. So I actually then got some of my first teaching experience within coding as I was growing in my career. I was invited to teach as a JavaScript instructor, which was like literally the highest honor to me at the time. Like I just was so in awe of the women that were leading the chapter, and wanted to do so much more. And becoming an instructor was like my next step up, and then eventually becoming a chapter leader. And I was a chapter leader here in the Detroit chapter until about basically 2020, which is when due to the state of the world, we decided to go virtual with all of our classes and events. And so since then I have 2020 was actually my first year on the board. And I really like to focus around the programming side of things, programming in the sense of what kind of content do we provide for our members and our community, how do we support our leaders, and really just kind of advocate for those experiences on the board. So that's me, in the sense of Girl Develop It. So again, you may see me at different classes or events, either mentoring or teaching, or just supporting the other instructors that are around, and in our Slack channel and things like that. And of course, for this show I would be hosting, but also I would be inviting lots of other folks from the community on to just talk to us about what their different roles are, what their transition was like, different fields that people want to get into, because of course there's so many disciplines you could go through. And I have my experience primarily in software development, in web development. I worked on a connectivity cloud, vehicle connectivity cloud. So I worked on a cloud-based platform. Um, Worked on building APIs, and my experiences have been mostly with Java, JavaScript, and Python. But again, that's just like a tiniest of a sliver when it comes to the different types of things that you can do. And so, with that being said, today, the fundamental question that I really want to answer is, what is tech? Like, and again, this is something we could talk about forever, honestly. But what is tech? And if you are trying to figure out if this is a good fit for you, what are some of the different options you might have, and just kind of give a little bit of insight on those. So let's start with just kind of overall, I would say that technology is definitely a very broad term, right? It encompasses so much, as far as tools, as far as processes, as far as different systems. Ultimately, I think it all centers around how we solve problems, and using those tools, using those processes, using those systems to solve problems to ultimately make our lives easier. Of course, there's lots of opinions and feelings about how everything is used overall, but I think that's really the goal of technology. And there's so many different aspects to technology. So usually when we just talk about like the world of tech, you could say it centers more into information technology. And so with information technology, we're talking about creating, maintaining, and using computer systems, using software, using different networks to process information and distribute information as well. So that could be, I think when some people think of IT, they might think more of, does my computer work? Like, you might have an IT, what do I want to say? You might have an IT department at your company that maybe helps out with more of your hardware, more of your networking, right? Like Wi-Fi, or different access levels that you have. So there's that aspect of IT for sure. But there's also the aspect of the maybe the servers that all of our web applications are running on, or maybe um, the software. Like we said, that's one thing that obviously sticks out when we think about tech. But yeah, so there's those different layers to it. And so within the field, I would say, of the list I have right now, there's about 8 different areas, um, maybe even more. I would say even 8 to 10, but there's like 8 to 10 areas that I'll kind of talk about right now. And so the first is going to be the software engineer. So, absolutely, the software engineer, I think, is a little bit more of the most common path. But I do often get the question, I think we often as an organization get the question of like, do you have to program to be in tech? And that's not true. So, although a software engineer is definitely something that you can aspire to, there's some other titles that I have here that are not programming specific. So, but with a software engineer, you're responsible for designing, developing, and maintaining software applications. So usually these are skills in programming in particular, although there's some other, supplemental skills that definitely goes into that. But the base of a software engineer would be programming. So choosing a language like JavaScript, for example, or Python or Ruby, Java, PHP, the list goes on. And then if you kind of branch off from a software engineer, there's also a web developer. And so for me, I got my start as a web developer, um, learning how to implement the visual design of a website. And so web developers definitely create websites, maintain websites. There is a focus on usually two different aspects or two different buckets that we center around. So you have the front end and you have the back end. So front end is going to be the visual design, right? When you're looking at a web page, you go to www.google.com in your browser. The technologies and the tools that allows you to actually see images on the page and see text on the page and have them all arranged in a certain type of way. Um, that all is what centers around the front end. Now, on the back end, that would be, more of the functionality side, the data side, or as we would say, the server interactions. And so, in that case, I would think more about like, okay, I can go to google.com and I can search for different results. But if I want to sign in to my Google account, then the process of actually sending that data, sending my password and my email address, validating that I am who I say I am, and then keeping me logged in and maintaining, certain types of customizations that I might have when I am signed in as a user. All of that functionality is what lives in the back end, right? So if you are a web developer, you could choose to be a front end developer, you could choose to be a back end developer. But either way it goes, no matter whether you choose front end or back end, um, well, actually, I'll say there is also the full stack, which is the person who kind of specializes in their skill set going across the stack. So I spent a lot of time as a full stack engineer. So I did front end and back end basically. But yeah, when you are getting into web development, if you think that that's somewhere that you want to focus, you can think about, do I want to be more on the visual side? Do I like to lay out the web page and show how it works and actually do all of the different user interactions? Or do I like to think about the functionality side of things? Do I want to work on how users log in and log out and work on how we process through different search results and display different search results, for example. So those are a couple aspects that you can think about. Um, Front end languages include HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So those are the specific languages that you use on the front end that allows you to display information in the browser. And so no matter what, if you do want to be on the web development side, you should learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you want to be on the back end side, you can use Node.js, which is a JavaScript it's really like a JavaScript server, but you could use Node.js, so that is using your JavaScript programming language. You could use PHP on the back end. There's a lot of things you could do on the back end. You could use Java. You could also use what I want to say, Python on the back end, Ruby on the back end. So it depends, but definitely on the front end, you will need to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So think about those aspects if you're interested in web development. Now, moving on to the realm of like data, we have the data scientist, and there's some different buckets here. When it comes to the data scientist, I think a data scientist is one that would analyze and interpret some complex data sets. So, data scientists, they do help businesses, try to figure out how to make better decisions based off of data that they have. So it could be user data, for example, right? It could be anything, but uh, data scientists or being in that realm is what focus more around some languages like Python and R, literally the letter R. Those are two popular languages for data science, not exclusive, but those are definitely the most common. And these also include subfields such as machine learning or artificial intelligence that definitely still falls under that data science realm as well. So if you know that that is something you're interested in, maybe data science or being an analyst, then you would be looking at a language like Python in order to kind of, establish your knowledge base. Now, branching out from the programming specific fields, I would say you also have a UX and UI designer. So UX would be for user experience and UI would be for user interface. So those UX and UI designers really focus on how do people interact with the products that we build, whether it's software, um, whether it's web applications, it doesn't matter. They think about what is that user interaction going to be like? How do we design it? How do we create an intuitive and enjoyable experience for the user? So they have and use different design principles. You will get into using wireframing tools, and the wireframe is really the basic way I would explain it is a wireframe is like um, the basic outline and structure for how you want your web application or your software to kind of look. So before you create a website, for example, you would actually create, maybe a drawing or a diagram, which is just like a visual outline of how you want everything to be laid out on your web page, how big or small you might want things to be, kind of get a general sense of where everything is going to be. And also, it will allow you to start to get into what will the user interactions look like on the website, right? So, where will we have menus so that folks will know how to navigate to different pages? Where will we maybe display some upcoming events, for example, on our Girl Develop It website? So that's thinking more about the user experience side of things. And then you also have prototyping software as well. And with the prototyping software, that would be the opportunity to kind of create a even like a demoable version of your application or your website before you actually go into the coding side of it. So those are some of the tools that you would think about and some of the skills that goes into UX and UI. It can definitely be helpful for folks, especially like say if you're a web developer or you're trying to get into UX and UI in web. If you have those front end skills, even if you just have some basic knowledge around how the front end works, then it can even further, I guess, support your knowledge base for being a UX and UI designer. But um, by, you know, basic measures, you don't necessarily need to have programming experience to go into UX or UI or really specialize around programming in particular. Now, another area, now I think this one is less talked about, I think, when we start telling people how to transition into tech would be the project manager. And so the project managers are super important to the development process. Project managers typically oversee planning, execution, and like closure of our technology projects, right? So when it comes to building a project, you don't want to just like jump in and just start doing stuff. You really want to have a goal and a plan in mind. You want to try to make sure you structure a process. Make sure that if you have deadlines, you're hitting your deadlines. Make sure that whatever user requirements you have are being fulfilled. And when issues arise, you can, really like kind of cycle those back into your development process just to make sure that even the issues that arise along the way are being addressed. So in the end, you can deliver, a great product. And um, it's not just really, I guess, the end delivery, because even once you typically launch a product, you still will have to maintain it over time. You may add new features and things of that nature. So the project manager tends to actually take on that role of overseeing, the entire project. And working with the teams to make sure, like I said, projects stay on schedule, you don't miss deadlines. You want to stay within scope of your project, right? So you sometimes you come up with all these different ideas as you're going, and they're great ideas, but if you don't still get the core base in that you initially set out for, then that's still going to be probably a poor delivery at the end. So avoiding scope creep, as we might call it. And I was going to say one more thing. Oh, meeting quality standards as well. So, making sure that we have some sufficient testing going on. Like I said, if you have issues that arise along the way, issues could include bugs, for example. If you have bugs in your product as you are developing features, making sure that those get addressed. So, that's the project manager. An offshoot of that will also be the product manager. And so the product manager can have um, a similar role as well. However, I would say, you know, um, a product manager is a little bit specific because if you work, like I've worked in product companies, right? So um, we have a specific product, even though it was a piece of technology, a piece of software, but it is a product ultimately. So again, they own like how the product is developed and maybe the goals and the um what I want to say, like the theme of how the product is actually developed over time. Um, they may help to really outline what that product would be, what kind of features should it have, and when it comes to the team structure, you can have maybe a group of software engineers, maybe a technical lead, a lead software engineer, a lead engineer on the product, and then you can have a product manager who is actually maybe technical, maybe non-technical, depending on the organization. And so it definitely is beneficial that if you are interested in a technical product manager type of a role, or even a technical project manager type of a role, then having some type of programming foundation is helpful. Because if you have that experience similar to UX and having like a web developer experience, front end developer experience, if you're a product manager that has technical experience, then you can be recommending how your product is going to be shaped overall with the considerations of what might be our technical limitations or our technical restrictions that we have to address as well. So that's more the product manager, project manager space. Now, I have a couple more that this one I think doesn't come up as much as well, and that would be the technical writer. The technical writers create documentation and instructional materials that helps users understand and use our technology products, especially in this age where we have a lot of software that is used by developers. Uh, a role like a technical writer can be extremely important. It's always important, but it can be really crucial and essential in those types of cases because usually, when we create our products they go straight to a particular user. We give them everything that they need to interact with the product through the user interface. But when you have developer tools, a lot of times, if you have heard of an API, for example, an application programming interface, if I said, hey, you know what? I want to use Google Maps inside of my application. I want to be able to incorporate the API that they have for Google Maps. I want to be able to use it to automatically load a map within my, application, or to be able to do navigation within my mobile app or something of that nature. Then it's not like I'm just going to tell the person to go to www.google.com and use the Google Maps feature there and then come back to us. No. I'm going to look through the technical documentation for the Google Maps API. And if that technical documentation is not very easy to navigate or understand or follow or is non existent, then that's going to make it difficult for me as a software engineer to actually integrate with that specific tool. So the technical writing can be really, I think, undervalued sometimes because it's not something that's just like broadcast in the same way that a software engineering role is, but it is very critical. And I do recommend that as a field to look into as well, especially if you are interested in, if you have like experience or crossover interest in writing, if you like to teach as well as develop software, then that can be a good field. Something that I would say is an offshoot from that would be the uh, developer relations or developer advocacy, developer evangelism. There's different roles for it, developer educator, just depending on what company that you might be interested in. But those are some offshoots of that technical writing. So if you are a developer and you use different software tools in your applications, then who are those software engineers and developers that actually helps to create the content for you so that you will know how to use those tools, right? So if I want to use Amazon Web Services or AWS to host my new software platform, how do I do that? Somebody has to create that information for us. And so technical writing is a little bit more around the documentation and maybe the instructions, maybe blogs, but also developer advocates, developer relations, evangelism, and things of that nature can also branch off into creating software demos for you. So, code demos. So, when you pick up a tool and you start to try to use it, you see some examples of how it can be done, not just, here's a description of what to do, and, or speak at conferences to get people to maybe onboard to different products and learn about or try to use new products or different products that are offered. So that's another aspect of it. I would say for me, I'm definitely one of those people that likes to do the developer education side of things as much as I like to program. So this is a field that I find to be particularly interesting, but wasn't something I knew about when I was first getting into tech. And then I have a couple more. So I guess this will be the last one. The IT support specialist. So this can look a couple different ways, but ultimately when I think about IT support, this would be someone that helps solve technical issues for users with their hardware or their software. So they can help the users troubleshoot problems that they have or give technical guidance. They might also perform repairs or maintenance. In my past experience as a product engineer, we had a support team. So if users were not able to or were having issues with our different services, the support team would try to troubleshoot some of the things that could be on the user side. But if it was discovered that it was something that was ultimately on the software side, then those problems would get escalated to the individual product teams. And the product teams were really, the ones that were responsible for troubleshooting the the different like technical issues. For example, we find a bug or a service, goes down for, an unexplained reason. So IT support is also a great role for a lot of folks, especially if you like to help. It's like the more customer service side of the like software world, I would say. And I did already talk about the product manager as kind of an offshoot of the project manager. But a couple notes that I did have here for the product manager is, like I kind of said before, working at the intersection of technology, business, and user experience. So, what is the product strategy? How do we create a roadmap for our product? Roadmap being like along the product journey, so to speak. What are the different points that we want to hit? What are the different milestones? How do we build up this product over time? And that roadmap can look like maybe a finalized destination at the end, but more typically, it looks like milestones, right? So first we want to get a basic version working, an MVP, as we would say, minimum viable product. Then we want to get, our product launched. But then down the road, we may have additional features that we already know we want to build in after launch. And we can also have additional features that emerge over time as we are maintaining our product. There's new things that people want, or there's things we might not have thought about before, or how do we evolve the product over time depending on our ecosystem. So those are a few of the areas you could go into. Now, it's really diverse when it comes to being in the tech industry. And one thing I want to say is that I don't want to give the impression that being at a quote unquote tech company is the only way to get into tech, right? Because when I think about tech, yes, I might think about the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, but technology as a as its own individual industry, it actually goes across other other areas, right? So if you are like someone that wants to work in healthcare, or you have a lot of passion around healthcare, you can work in the healthcare industry doing technology work, right? You can be a software engineer at um, an insurance company, a health insurance company that actually builds the mobile application that we use for, you know, picking out our doctors, or finding out about our benefits, or keeping up with our co-pays and our deductibles for the year. That still takes a some technical roles in order to fulfill that aspect, even though it's not specifically going and working in a hospital necessarily. So just think about that as well when it comes to that diversity. So you can take a lot of these skills, no matter what they are, these different categories that I kind of mentioned today, and you can actually apply them to different industries that you're interested in. So I love to teach. And for me, ed tech or education tech is an area I'm very interested in. So not just teaching and not just writing software for or writing materials for other developers to use, but writing and creating tools and technologies that allows folks to learn better, learn more efficiently, support different types of learning and things of that nature, right? So for example, if you have a website, I think a lot of people are familiar with maybe Code Academy. So Code Academy is a great website, or Free Code Camp. I'll say Free Code Camp because that one is, open source, and a lot of people are familiar with it. With Free Code Camp, yes, there is the aspect of, going there and finding information. But if you think about it from the perspective of the folks that actually develop Free Code Camp, you have to build your platform, right? They have a whole entire learning system built into their platform. They have ways that you can just practice the examples right there in the browser and things of that nature. Those are the types of tools that didn't necessarily exist uh, back before, a lot, maybe even before I got started into tech, because when I got started, Free Code Camp and similar tools were still pretty new. But now it's really common to find different coding resources that allows you to easily, practice in the browser and things like that. So when it comes to thinking about your fields, if you are transitioning, you can absolutely think about how can you take new tech skills and apply it in the industry that you might already be experienced in or passionate about. And that would really lend itself to being, you have that domain expertise, as we would call it. So If you have worked in a factory, in a plant on the assembly line, and you understand how that process works, and you understand maybe how some of the different software applications and web applications that you maybe use to test your use to test your parts before they roll off the line, you have the experience of what it's like to actually use those tools, so you could take the new technology skills that you have and maybe go and improve that software or even create something new and revolutionize, or innovate in an industry that you already have experience with. So there's a lot more that I could get into for sure, but I just wanted to kind of cover those, have like lay some groundwork. And as we're going forward, we will be able to talk more about these different aspects of tech, have folks on that can talk about different elements of their careers, whether it be in software, web, or, data science, for example. And I would say that for us, we are girldevelopit.com, which is where you can find our different classes. We primarily focus on um, software development. So we do web development, front end in JavaScript, we do Python. We also have a data science track, we have a UX and UI track. Um, hmm, those are our big buckets, I want to say. And there's other tools I didn't talk about, right? Like, for example, we have a SQL class running right now, and SQL would be for the like if you want to actually learn more about the back end and be able to process data and store data using databases, then SQL is another way. So we have different classes like that are available to everyone. I'm so happy for everybody who was able to, just participate today. I saw some great and helpful comments, and I hope that this was helpful for you all. And then what I would like to say is that if there's anything that you think would be interesting for us to talk about or cover, you will find these live shows once a month, but I will also be publishing these. You will be able to view us on YouTube as well. So we are live on YouTube right now. We're live on LinkedIn. And I am live on my Twitch channel. So yeah, I'm happy to continue to push these conversations forward. So please do reach out if you have found this in any type of way, whether it's through a comment or whether, if you have any like connection to us and you want to just send us a message about something you think would be interesting, let me know for sure. And again, I am Meta Dev Girl, also known as Jessica, and I am happy to be, running this show for you all. So you can find me online at Meta Dev Girl, pretty much every social platform, and otherwise on LinkedIn, you can connect with me as well. I am Jessica Vaughn on LinkedIn, JESEEKIA, V as in Victor, AUGHN, and I will see you all next time.